This edition of Conversations, we're visiting the small, picturesque town of Natchez, which is celebrating its 300th birthday. Today, we're at the charming Twin Oaks Bed and Breakfast, the old antebellum home which dates back to the 1800s. And if you're not familiar with its owner, well, you're in for a treat. We're talking to Regina Charboneau, a renowned chef, author, and restaurateur who traces her culinary skills back to Paris, France. Regina, I got to admit, it has been a lot of fun talking to you off the camera, and I can only hope we can replicate what we've been talking about before. You've lived an amazing life, and I honestly don't know how you do all you do.
Well, I always say get up early, go to bed late. So that's kind of half the battle right there.
And you were showing me off a cup of caffeine too.
Oh yeah, caffeine all day long.
Exactly. So. Okay. Natchez, Mississippi. Why Natchez?
Well, I grew up here.
Yeah.
I'm seventh generation, and we talked about this earlier, I always say I spent 23 years trying to get away from Natchez, then I found myself spending the next 23 trying to figure out how to get home again. And, I had a lot of adventures and a wonderful life outside of Natchez, and I think a lot of it was my father passed away unexpectedly. And then you start having that pull to come home. And I was going to come for 6 months, put my boys in school here, spend some time with my mother. And here I am 15 years later, still here and very much embedded in the community and in Natchez and at Twin Oaks. So this is home, and it just is where I needed to be.
Well, thank you for letting us film in your home today, because this is absolutely amazing. And I tell you, look around on the walls and you can see little bits and pieces of some of the amazing adventures you've had in your life. When you first started out, when you were really young, did you like to cook then?
I hated school so much that I had the art of faking sick. So I had it down to a science. I can never call in. I'm my own boss. I wish I could do that. I don't have anybody to call into.
Yeah.
No, I can't get away with that. I think about it all the time. Yeah. But no, I really didn't like school, and I would fake sick and stay home and bake pies and cookies. And I didn't really get the real bug to cook until I was a senior in high school. My dad had a car accident, and Alberta, who worked for us, was a really good cook. My mother was a fabulous mother, but could not boil water. So I started cooking. She said, I'll pay you to cook for your brothers and sisters. And I tried some home ec recipes, and it was like it was a mass exodus. They hated it. And then I just started cooking what I grew up eating. My father was from South Louisiana. So I just didn't realize that I just kind of had that touch, I guess. And I just started cooking without a recipe and making the things that I saw him cook all those years, and it stuck, and I got the bug, and that was it. So.
Well, you decided to go to culinary school in Paris, but how you got there is what is the truly great story.
Yeah, we will not go through the being left in a service station in Missoula, Montana.
That's a little awkward.
That's a little awkward, but I'll tell you the rest of the story. So that's off-camera stuff.
Okay, off-camera.
But no, I went to several Southern universities. I had a better time at each one. And I was at LSU, and a group of friends were going to Alaska, a friend who had graduated in engineering. And the trip didn't go too well. Yeah. He was the one who left me in the bathroom, but then he came back and got me. But we all ended up in Alaska, and I called my mother, and this is kind of interesting. You think about no cell phones, no internet, no Skype. And I called my mother and said, I've got the best news. I just took a job cooking at a construction camp for 8 men, and I'm going to work out there for a year and save money to go to cooking school in Paris. Well, if there would have been internet, I'm sure I would have had an e-ticket and a plane ticket, I would be home. But it was a good experience, and talk about an experience. When I went to college, and I'm older than you by a lot, we couldn't even wear dresses on campus except on Saturday. Or pants on campus. We had to wear dresses all the time. So I'm going out in the bush of Alaska. Painter's pants were in vogue. I had like one pair of those.
This was the 1970s.
Yeah, and I had, all these cute little jackets and plaid skirts. And so I have my electric rollers. Cuisinart had just come out with the first Cuisinart. Of course I packed that up, and I get out in the bush of Alaska, and no electricity. It's a tent camp. And the only way I could ever plug in my electric rollers, which were not really necessary at that point, I changed my whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
But we ended up, I would have to knock over a barrel of fuel and roll it to the generator. And that was, I mean, it was like those guys had no sympathy. It's like, you're the camp cook, you figure it out.
Right.
And so I grew up a lot, but it was a great experience to measure the rest of my life by. And
So by the time you got to Paris, that was a piece of cake.
oh yeah, Paris
Yeah.
was, yes, definitely. The funny thing is, it was took a while to get used to the noise, the city
Really?
noise after being out in the bush of Alaska.
Yeah.
It was so quiet.
No
and-
bears in Paris either.
No bears in Paris, no.
Yeah.
I do have a scar of trying, I had to teach myself how to shoot a .45 Magnum because of bears.
Yeah.
And so I had it and I put both hands on it and it kicked back and, it burned my hands
Mm-hmm.
from the barrel and I got a scar and I went and put it under my mattress and figured the gun was more dangerous than bears and that was it.
Okay,
Never
so I'm
tried
feeling
that
a little
again.
better about if this interview goes bad, then I know I'll
Yeah,
be...
no guns.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
you're good.
I'll be
no, I
okay.
gave that up. You're good.
You go from Paris, and then you end up in San Francisco. Was that right? Is that
Yes,
There was
so-
nothing in between.
No,
Well, the Atlantic
came back
Ocean.
to Alaska.
Yeah.
Came
Okay.
back to Alaska, and as I was telling you, my husband's girlfriend was sweet enough to introduce the
Wasn't
two
that
of us.
nice of her?
Yeah, such
Yeah.
a sweet person. So I never get Christmas cards or anything. But anyway, so Doug and I have been married over 35 years now, so it's been a good thing.
And it has been a very good thing. Of course, you've got two amazing sons.
I do. And then we have an adopted daughter, Catherine.
Oh,
and
great.
She's in Dallas now, and everybody's like off the payroll. It's great. Jean-Luc's doing rum, doing great with Charboneau rum, and Martin's working in New York for Google, and Catherine's teaching school in Dallas. And
You had mentioned to me a great book that you're thinking about writing.
yeah, I said, my next book is going to be a New York Times bestseller, and it's not going to be a cookbook. It's going to be a book on how to create a business to employ your college graduates.
I will buy 3 of them.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to be, it's a great thing. And actually, I have to attribute the idea to my husband. Doug is the financial guy in the
Yeah.
family and does turnarounds of troubled companies. And he just did this analysis of what it costs to continue to support children that are out of college and on their own, because by the time you do car insurance, which they can't afford, and life, health insurance they can't afford, and and you're still buying, doing a cell phone here and there and that kind of stuff. And he said, we're going to invest in a business, and if they're unemployed, they can just come bottle rum. But Jean-Luc actually took the business, just got into it, and it's been, has fit him like a glove, and he's just done an amazing job. And
yeah, I think he has something very cool to brag about too, doesn't
yeah,
he?
he does. So 3 gold medals
Yes.
in the first 17 months of business. So the white rum has a gold medal. The bottle design, which Doug gets credit for, he was very instrumental in this idea of the Mississippi River. Sugarcane grows from Greenville to the Gulf of Mexico, and so it's the Mississippi River with Natchez with a gold star. It's a beautiful bottle, and they got a gold medal for that at a design competition. And then their gold rum, which is just about to be released, was judged and literally got the highest rating in right now of a gold rum in the world.
In the world.
It's huge. And that was at a very reputable tasting in Chicago at the BTI, and they have rum experts. They'll taste rum once a year. So it's a big deal. I'm
Coming
proud
right
of
out
them.
of little old Natchez, Mississippi.
Yeah, Natchez, the center of the universe.
That's
Don't
right.
you know that?
300
Yeah.
years old. Hey.
300 years old, and amazing people here. That's why so many of my friends would say, how can you move home to Natchez after San Francisco and New
You had
York?
2 really successful restaurants
Yeah,
there.
Regina's at the Regis and
Yeah.
Biscuits and Blues. Biscuits and Blues is still there, 21 years old this year.
That's hard to believe.
Live
Yeah.
blues 6 nights a week and fried chicken. And so,
See, when I lived in California, I would have driven to San Francisco just to get fried chicken.
and I did that. That's what I missed. I had
Yeah.
always done fine dining, but I really missed just good old, just blues. I miss the music.
And you got to lubricate the heart.
Yeah, and I said it was more of, I created a nightclub for grown-ups.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to see Irma Thomas at Slim's in San Francisco, and I was pregnant with Martin, and there was no place to sit. And I go,
Yeah.
I'm going to open a nightclub where everybody has a seat, and you don't have to look over anyone. You're not crammed in, and anyway, I did it and it worked. So.
You had Regina's in
Sonoma,
Sonoma County.
Yeah, I did Sonoma. That was kind of short-lived.
And you were commuting, and one day when you come back from the bridge, you discovered why maybe you couldn't commute anymore.
It's funny that you know that story. I was driving back, I had a 2-year-old and 2 restaurants. I go, no problem.
No
commuting.
problem with the 2-year-old.
No problem. And I would get to the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was so beautiful, I would burst into tears. And this was happening on a more and more frequent basis. And I called my doctor and I go, I think I'm clinically depressed or something's way wrong. I've never felt like this. And he goes, well, maybe you need to come in. And, I was pregnant with the second son.
And like we mentioned earlier, that is what brought you back home.
I did. My dad passed away and I just had that pull. And I really... the further away you get from growing up and you start looking back kind of behind your shoulder and you go, God, I really had a great childhood. It's funny, living in San Francisco, everybody was going to therapy and self-help groups, and I didn't need any of that. It was funny, I was thinking about this story. My parents, being one of 9 children, and I had a great life, and we probably had a lot given to us, considering there were 9 children to divide all this love and money among. But I remember I wanted this stereo for my birthday. I was about 13 years old, and my father said that morning, and that's all I wanted, and I wanted the stereo, and my father said, it's just too expensive. We can't afford it. And my mother said, JP, darling, don't say that. That'll give her low self-esteem. I love that story about my mother. But, my parents really gave us this feeling that we were worthy individuals, and I think that's such a great thing. But I just had such nothing but happy memories. And I thought, I want my boys to be able to look back and say that, growing up, it should be joyful. And, and I'm not saying in a small southern town it's not difficult sometimes, and they probably, they're mean girls in schools no matter where you are, and boys sometimes, they had their little moments, but overall people look out for you in a community like this, and it's a great place.
Of course, if anybody ever thought for a second you were moving here to slow down, that was far from the case.
Well, I did, but I was misinformed.
Yeah. And I love how you got involved with the American Queen.
Yeah.
And then what a neat thing that is too, because I've always seen that boat going, I want to go on that, and you're helping them develop their cuisine.
I created all their menus, and I'm jumping ship. I've got a new boat.
Excellent.
The French America line. A boat called the Louisiane.
Congratulations.
And I leave Friday to go to New York for press tour for that, but it's exciting. But it's going to be kind of the Ritz-Carlton of the riverboats.
Very nice.
Small, 150 passengers. And I'm excited because I can really delve into the food a lot more when you have smaller, cooking for 150. And I'm excited about it.
That's a Thanksgiving for you.
It is, exactly. A little quieter than Thanksgiving, so.
A little less rambunctious. Talk about that a little bit though, because I think a lot of people are watching right now going, how do you do it all? How do you plan it? Like, how do you plan a Thanksgiving dinner for 145? We have 8 people and it nearly drives us crazy.
Well, the New York Times did a great article and people can go online and read it. But I actually went, one of my things about Thanksgiving is I start cooking in October and freezing my biscuits, which I'm known for. I make, and we'll have some of those later, I guarantee. And but I make them and freeze. The biscuits go in the freezer, the brisket. I have my brother Peter smokes the turkeys at Biscuits and Blues, but my dressings, I start baking cornbread in October, and then I crumble it in Ziploc bags. And I just do everything and freeze it ahead, and where I never break a sweat, and I think that's being a Southern belle, but I just plan so every day it looks easy, and I just plan ahead. But I'm thinking already, planning November because the American Queen will actually be here Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, wow.
And they said, can you do your entertaining class that morning? And I'm going, okay, if they come at 10:30 and leave at 12:30, And if I've got people in the kitchen putting everything in the oven and we put the hot food in the ice chest, yeah, I think I can do that.
And when you were doing the entertaining classes, it was like 3 a day. It got to the point we'd have 30 people come through the house, and you were getting to the point where you probably couldn't even remember what you said at any given time.
Yeah, that is funny because you start feeling like Groundhog Day, like, did I say that already? But it's fun. And one of the greatest thing about opening my home to people off the boat is they are just blown away that somebody is opening their personal home to them. And it's just, that's the way I grew up. I mean, it was just, my parents were always just come on in, and it's, you know, and I tell them all the time, I mean, consider this, that's my job.
Yeah.
You know, what a great job to put a drink in people's hand, put a plate of food in their hand. Yeah, it's a terrible job.
Your job is joy. It really is. It truly is. And what a nice home to open up to. I mean, come on, Twin Oaks. I mean, it's on the National Historic Register. It's just seeping. What made you decide to buy a historic home? Well,
I married a Yankee because I knew better and he didn't. But, you know, I didn't really want one of these houses because I knew. And a lot of responsibility comes along with buying a historic home because Natchez, a lot of our economy is built on tourism and being on fall and spring tour. And so I was a little apprehensive, but then I have the curse of vision. I came in and I saw this house and go, oh yeah, I definitely see what I can do here. And I used to tease, I said, you know, compared to some of these houses were the Clampetts of the antebellum set, but after living here 15 years, you know, you find a little treasure here and there, and all of a sudden the house is full and it's painted, and, you know, you have stopped all the leaks, and it's a home. So
you have got several caricatures of some of the celebrities who've crossed your path. I would imagine being in San Francisco, they probably came through the restaurant and you got to know them. And the one that caught my eye, there is actually a Ronnie Wood, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones, hanging up on your wall.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That's a self-portrait by Ronnie Woods. I love that. And Mick's been here. Mick's had dinner here, not just once. We had a nice dinner, and he loves bouillabaisse, and I did that. And then he got weathered in, and he called me, and he goes, "Do you have leftovers?" And so he came. I go, "How many people have had Mick Jagger in their kitchen,
asking
like
for leftovers,
and helping, you know, like serve leftovers out of the kitchen to the table in the den?" So
it truly could get no satisfaction because he wanted to come back for seconds.
Wanted it more. But he's a great guy. But you know, I've said, I know I've been cooking for a long time when all of a sudden I start thinking about the people I've cooked for.
Yeah.
When I know how old I am, when I can say I knew and cooked for Bob Hope and Walter Cronkite, the Rolling Stones, John Bon Jovi, 9 Inch Nails, you know, it's a long history.
I saw the one from Christopher Reeve and just had to smile.
Yeah.
You know.
So sweet. That was he and who was, of course, his wife Dana, were dating at the time, and he was doing love letters with Julie Haggerty for several, like 6 weeks, and he and Dana, when she'd come in for the weekends, would come to Regina's, and we'd have dinner, and then Doug and Dana and Chris, we'd get on the cable car and go down to North Beach and go to the Savoy Tivoli, and we played pool, and then end up at Tosca for a white nun at, 2 o'clock in the morning. Those were the days before children. It was a really fun time.
Not only do you own one of the older homes in Mississippi, but you actually own the oldest building in the Mississippi Territory, King's Tavern.
Yeah, talk about the curse of vision.
Yeah,
I did not need a new restaurant at 60 years old, but when Doug and Jean-Luc decided to do the rum distillery, they found this great location, and Doug said, "Get in the car, I've got the perfect place for the distillery."
Yeah.
And it was a turn-of-the-century old grocery store. I said, "This is great." He said, "Yeah, but this property comes together. King's Tavern is part of the property." And I go in, and within 5 minutes, I had the concept. I go, okay, wood-fired pizza oven, craft cocktails, we'll do the rum upstairs, we'll get a liquor store. I'm going to do Amish picnic tables, and literally we looked at it, we bought it that April, I had it totally ready to open in September. So it's the curse of vision. It is a curse.
Forget rum. If you could bottle your energy, it would be awesome.
Oh, well, I'm losing it with age, I think, a little bit. I keep saying I'm going to slow down a little bit more, but...
Is King's Tavern truly haunted?
You know, I'm not a woo-woo kind of person.
Yeah.
When we bought it, there were all of these ghost shows and all,
Yeah.
but we have had instances. P. Allen Smith, who has a wonderful gardening show on PBS often, and is a good friend. And we were there one day and during construction, and it was as if someone walked into the orange construction lights like a body. We're all standing there and saw this. It was like someone walked in and stepped away. But the most interesting thing is we actually had someone on video. We had all this green orb going around.
Really?
I had set the alarm. I go to my car, it was unset, and then on the video, the security video, there's like all this lights going around, and you see the refrigerator door behind the bar just slowly opening. No, we didn't see a beer being taken out or anything. It was very strange stuff that goes on. So, you know, if you want to believe, it's pretty easy there to believe.
Yeah, normally I would, if I saw things like that, it'd be because I visited the rum distillery
Well,
first.
yeah, and there may have been something. Yeah, maybe that's people do tend to see more after they've visited the distillery first. So.
I think one thing, I mean, not only is your cooking amazing, and your biscuits are to die for, I will say that, but you share those recipes, and you've been pretty successful. You've had some books out now, and of course, Mississippi Currents is the latest book. And I think what's so neat about that book is how it's structured from the North Mississippi to the Middle Mississippi River to the South. Talk about the differences on that. Are there any foods that are common on the...
You know, it's so interesting because it was a challenge to make. I mean, you take Beale Street to the Bayou, easy breezy to come up with great food, great recipes. Yeah. You go to the northern Minnesota and the middle Mississippi, but there's so much European influence. Yeah. I mean, there's a huge Alsatian population. In St. Louis, you have Croatians, you have Italians. So the Hmong population in St. Paul and Minneapolis. So you have all these flavors along the river now, and that started in the 1700s and have flowed down. But one of the things that's interesting, when I was on the book tour, people would ask me, what foods flow from the headwaters all the way to the Gulf of Mexico? What are the common threads of food? It's really limited. I would say pork, chicken, and corn.
Really?
I mean, it's so different. Like if you're in of course, the upper Mississippi, it's wild rice. When you hit the confluence of the Arkansas River, it's white rice. The walnuts you don't get into walnut. I mean, you have walnuts in the upper Mississippi. You have pecans once you hit Arkansas. So that confluence of the Arkansas River changes quite a bit. It stops there and then it trickles down and is more southern. It's interesting. And pawpaws, do you know what pawpaws are?
Yeah.
And those are still very much celebrated and used in Iowa and by the Native Americans in the north. Even though we have them here, we don't really eat them. Even though we eat catfish here, and even though they have catfish there, they don't eat it. They eat walleye.
You know, you've been a great ambassador for Mississippi. Is there anything you'd like to see the state do to get people here? Yes.
Well, know that we are open for business and that we love everyone. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, and sometimes I think, am I missing something? Because my Mississippi is so open. Yeah. My Mississippi is without prejudice, who's open, who accept people for who they are. And I wouldn't have come back if that wasn't the Mississippi I knew and loved. And, I want a better rap, and I want better education. I want our state to get all that it deserves. There's so many great people here.
No
and
doubt.
So
most of them will come to your table to eat.
Yeah, and we have great people. But I think that Mississippi has more good than bad, and I believe in it, and I want to believe in it. And, we just have to keep plugging away and working to help get, really to help with our school systems. And I think that if I take on another project, I would like to know how I could maybe help with the school systems. I don't know, since I dropped out of every college, I don't know if they would take me, but I can do some volunteer work.
Oh, I think they would ask for your help in a heartbeat. To wrap it up, there was a little bit of a controversy when your biscuit recipe was printed in the New York Times because gasp, you use margarine.
Oh my God, those purity police, you know,
Yes.
that just go crazy and on these blogs and stuff. And Sam Sifton actually had to have me come into the Times office and Kim Severson and kind of put it to rest. And by the way, Land O'Lakes margarine
Yes.
and Parquet are zero trans fat for those purists out there. But you know, fat is fat. You can't make biscuits without fat. And people will ask me all the time, they'll go, what if I use all butter? Well, then you'll have shortbread.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, what if I want to use Crisco instead of margarine? I go, that's fine. And what if I want to do this?
Yeah.
And I go, that's fine. Just don't call it my recipe. So my recipe is 3 parts margarine and 1 part butter. And I don't know anybody who's gotten more press about biscuits than I have, so I think it works. So
In the final minute, what's next for you?
rest.
Rest.
A little time off, yeah. No, I don't know. I'm the new president of the Pilgrimage Garden Club, and we own Longwood and Stanton Hall and the Carriage House. So,
Could you have probably
I'm
picked up an easier job, maybe like being Prime Minister of England?
oh yeah, with all women as
Yeah.
members, yeah, you know that's easy.
Oh,
600
simple.
women, piece of cake.
I
Yeah.
like how you relax.
Yeah, but it's again,
Yeah.
it's service. You grow up in this community, and things are expected and giving to the community. And I think maybe that's what I love about Natchez is community service is kind of inbred early on. You know, you just live it. And these ladies in the 30s turned this town around, and they keep it going. And there's a lot of pressure on the women in this community to keep the economy going. So the women of Natchez created the word creative economy.
Regina, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.